That is also another big change. Well, it's the argument that, look, people must take responsibility for themselves. All right, this is where we have reached now. They used to have what you call it, patriotic society, where the employer behave like he's or her child and look after you and do everything for you. And they say that is now done. Everybody grew up. Everybody must be big. So you must take responsibility for your own welfare. Now, with that sort of philosophy, the ARS, and I am predicting that even within Jamaica, that within 10 years, with people like Scotia and all the other people who market this product, I believe that within 10 years, the asset base of ARS is going to be bigger than the asset base of group pension scheme. That is my prediction. All right? And it's going to happen that way. It's going to keep on happening that way. But we need education and information. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the law later on. I don't bring that in here now. So those are the two major changes that have been happening in the pension industry worldwide and Jamaica. But there's one other reason in Jamaica that I think would have to add to the drivers of change. And I don't want this to be misunderstood and misinterpreted, but it is a fact. I'm not saying you should blame it, but people use it as an excuse, at least the legislation. When the legislation, no, it's true. I'm a practitioner, and I advise people. So I know. And I'm not saying anything's wrong with the legislation. No. And believe you me, I don't think anybody is a greater supporter of the legislation than St. Elmo Whyte. Because I have seen what has happened to some pension schemes in this country. I have seen pension schemes where people just use the money, employer that is, buy a motor car and loan the money to themselves at 3%, when they could have been getting 12 and 15% on the people's money. And when the people retire, who suffer? The pension scheme. So let me tell you, if from all that point of view, where there is a proper supervision, and where there are some do's and some don'ts, I believe no matter what the faults of legislation, it is a much better scenario than prior to the legislation. And I say that anywhere, because I believe it, because I have seen it. Right? I have seen it. So, but that though, people use it as excuse, because to comply to the legislation wasn't an easy thing. I remember there was hardly any before. As Mrs. Norton Cook said, you had the tax side, but that was all right, because taxman just want to know you pay the tax. But there was no real supervision. Right? And I want to say something to you before I forget. The greatest benefit that accrues to a pension fund, because there is no taxation at all on your investments. And that, if you look at any pension scheme, after it has matured a little, the investment income that accrues to that pension scheme is more than the contribution to the pension scheme. Oh yes, because I've had to look at these things, right? And that's what happens. So when you get all those investment income tax-free and capital appreciation tax-free, I don't even know if the government work out the level of subsidy that they give to a pension fund. I don't even know if they do it. And I'm going to give you a figure for you to write down. All right? Let me tell you the figure. Imagine twin sisters. I only speak about beautiful twins. I don't even twin brothers and them things. Twin sisters. And let us assume that both of them enter the workforce at 25. Exactly same age, exactly same industry, two exactly same companies, paying them exactly same pay right from 25 to 65 when they retire. But company one has an approved pension scheme. Company two has none. But the two sisters, being twins, said, look, we want to retire on the same income, since we are going to get the same salary for the next 40 years. We are twins. We do things together. Well, let me tell you now. The one that's in the approved pension plan, well, let me put it the other way around. The one that is in the non-approved, based on certain assumptions and scenarios that I have done, she would have to pay somewhere between 30 and 40% more in contributions than the one in the approved pension scheme for the two of them to end up with the same pension.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Somewhere between 30 and 40%. So that is the level of subsidy which the government gives a pension scheme. right? She would have to pay more than that. And then you see, you can argue about when you start to get the income back because everybody have to pay tax. So we're just talking about the build up here. They would have to pay, the one in the non-approved would have to pay something like that. So again, it shows you how this thing has to be important to the government, why they are doing it. But must, because if you don't have a pension when you retire, you become what? A ward of the state. So what the government is doing is trying to prevent that. Right? That's why they give you these benefits. And we're coming back to the legislation, because I think they have another step to go. And I fervently believe it. Okay? So those are the drivers of change. Now, I am now going to talk about the importance of a pension. Again, when you talk to people, they just say pension, and they leave it at that. No, pension is real. One of the definitions that I like about pension, there are many. And I told you, pension is any money you get in retirement. That's true. But when we come to the approved pension, what I like, one of the definitions that I like, is that pension is deferred pay. I like it. As a matter of fact, if you think about the original name, which is superannuation fund, what does super means? Above. What is annuation? Pay. Annuation. Superannuation, it means above your pay. That's what it really means. Pension is something in addition to your pay, but it is deferred. You don't get it while you are getting your pay. You get it when you stop getting your pay. So pension replaces pay. Now, therefore, and as a mathematician, I always have to look, I like to study structures and systems. Right? And what you now have to do, you don't even have to talk about pension anymore. You know? Once you agree that pension is deferred pay, I don't have to talk to you about pension anymore. You know? I just talk to you about your pay. Because if I'm talking to you about your pay, I'm talking to you about your pension. And that's how we as educators have to do it. Because pension is far, but pay is very near. As a matter of fact, pay is absent. It never is enough. Right? So we talk about pay. What are the two most important things about anybody's pay? One, it must be as high as possible. So what is the most important thing about pension?
Must be as high as possible.
It must be as high as possible. Second thing about pay, you must get an increase every year which reflects inflation.
Yes.
What is the second most important thing about pension? Your pension must increase every year in line with inflation. That is how it works. But we don't seem to see it that way. And that's why sometimes we shy away. Right? Another problem we have with pension is that people say things like this. Pension is for old people. Now, let me handle that one. Let us assume that some people think that 65 is old. Because, you know, I only think, the only time I think I'm old is when somebody apprised me that I am dead. If you tell me I'm dead, I say, well, I must have been old to have died. But so long as I have my life, I am young. I am not dead. But let's assume 65 is old. Then, what I would say about it is this. The receipt of pension is for old people. But the provision and funding of pension is for every working people. Two different things. The receipt of pension is for old people. But the provision and funding of pension is for every people. Now, if you look at the law, and once Ms. Hennes write the law, I analyze it. What the law says, if you look at it, they give you a maximum pension of 75% of your final pay. But they tell you you have to work at least 37 and a half years in order to get it.
Yes.
So what they're telling you then is that your average working life is about 40 years. Mm-hmm. That's what they're telling you, which is true. Because most people enter between 20 and 25 and then end up coming up between 60 and 65. So your average working life is about 40 years. Then they turn around and tell you, subject to a few little clauses, that the maximum contribution is 20% of your salary. They expect you to